Hi guys, welcome back to Yes You Pod, the podcast where we put you back in community. I'm Evie and I am missing my co-host Emily today. I actually do miss her every day, even though we talk probably every single day. If you haven't seen her episode last week, she did an amazing episode on anxiety, attitude, and all the feels. Literally, it was so amazing. She talked about putting God in the center. She talked about how we change. And as the seasons go on, how we're not supposed to be stagnant, that we change as the seasons change. And I think that episode was so beautiful. Chef's Kiss, 10 out of 10. If you haven't watched it, please go back and watch it. And yeah, promo to the last episode. Guys, we've been recording this podcast for over a year now, and which is pretty crazy to say. From when we started to now, a lot of things have changed in our lives with you guys. And those faithful viewers, we love you. I love you. We love you. And we're excited for what God will do next as we grow. In Jesus' name, this podcast grows because more opportunities, more outlets. And so we're super excited to bring you an episode today. Just to start off, as we always do, we always ask, how are you? So I'll give you a few seconds to answer. I'm glad you're doing great. For me, I think this really has been a season of learning, a season of getting things done, accomplishing things, starting things. Sometimes God will remind us of things, and thank God that He does, because not only is He reminding us because He knows we have to get to it, He's reminding us and giving us grace because we haven't started. So someone told me that, and it never left me. I think it was Emily's mom, I'm pretty sure. She was like, if God gives you the same word over and over again, you're lucky. Like, you have some type of grace because at least He's still speaking it to you. And so that's the season I've been on, is like working on the things that God has called to do, even if it doesn't look like familiar at the moment, and just putting that in my life, making time, making room for the gifts, making room for just doing what He's called, whether it's writing, whether it's worshiping and not in front of others, whether it's just taking a step back and reflecting. Maybe it's thinking before speaking. Like, there's so many things that I've learned, and it's because of the daily situations that my life brings me to. And I can say that I feel like I have grown in some sort of aspect when it comes to that. I'm trying to emotionally become more aware. If you know me, she's a crier. So we're working on emotions a lot this season, and just really focusing on what God calls for and what He's stripping out. I think that's what it is. It's a season of like removal of learning, of implementing. So it's, while God is still stripping away things and removing things, He's also replacing them with things that have just continued to benefit and to bless my life. And I'm super excited. I just want to give a shout out to my friends. I posted this on my story the other day. I was like, I'm so proud of my friends because they're doing big girl things. And even Emily's doing big girl things. And I'm just so proud. It's like I seen a post that was like, I raised my friends to act this way, or I didn't raise my friends to act this way. And I was like, wow, we really just have such great influence on each other. When we see someone win, we want to win too. And so I'm so proud of the circle of people I have around me, going through hard times but still pushing, going through hard times but still knowing they have people and community around them is one of the biggest blessings. And today, I just wanted to talk about something that actually one of my friends had mentioned and had been going through. And I was like, dang, what can I talk about? What can I bring to the table this week? And I honestly did not know. It was up until last night that I was like, okay, I'll talk about this for sure, for sure. And it is about when God delays something in your life and how that affects you. And that's just what we're going to talk about. Delay is not denial. And I feel like this was a preaching a few years ago that I heard. But just to give you some aspects of how it plays out in my life and how I've seen it work in the life of others, there's a lot of times when we as people, and me and Emily have talked about this before on the podcast, where we have a plan. And our plan is maybe a 5-year plan. Maybe it's a 3-month plan. Maybe it was your vision board on January 1st. And for some reason, God is funny. He's like, no, that's not what I planned for you. You weren't supposed to do it that way. Maybe you're doing it too fast. Let's say, for example, there is a goal you want to accomplish, to save X amount of money, to move out, or to buy something valuable to you. And you see yourself working in and day out to accomplish this goal. Maybe this goal is to get a new job. Maybe this goal to get a new job is something that you really wanted, something that you've studied for, something that you've put in your hard time with, but you don't see God making room for it in your life. It's you try and you try again and you attempt and nothing is happening. What do you do then? Like, what is your reaction? To give you guys a personal story, I did have a friend who went through the same situation, and I brought up that example because it hits close to home, where you are reaching for something, you're going, you're studying, you're making time, you're pushing everything to the side to make room for this thing that you know is going to elevate you, put you at a higher status monetarily, with people and different connection wise. And it's not bad. When I say these examples, it's not for us to be like, so I can't have status, so I can't have money. I'm not saying that, because a girl knows we need these things to advance, and they're not necessary, but they're helpful to get to where we want to be sometimes. And so it's not any of that. It really is just knowing that God has his hand over everything. And who do we really trust in when we are making these decisions to go after these aspirations that he's placed in our hearts? At the end of the day, God wants to give us those desires that we want as well. He wants to give us the desires of our heart. But how does our heart posture look towards him? It wasn't until I prayed with my friend for probably the fifth time about the same situation that even I was like, okay, God, is this not of you? Like, are we praying for nothing? Do you want this for my friend? What are we doing wrong? And really, it was when she turned towards him for the first time, when she sought her gaze on something other than what she thought was going to launch her forward, and reminded herself and recognized and knew that God is the only one that can launch you forward. It's not people that can launch you forward. Yes, people have power to move positions around and make room for the gifting that God gave you, but it's ultimately God that puts your names in places that you never thought your name had any business being in. Like, who is to say that our names are brought up in rooms and places and folders, in DMs of people that we feel as though we have no power to be in. We have no place, when God really has the ultimate power to shift things around for our good. And to end that story really quickly, because it's just one of the many things that I've seen, that delay of my friend going through the trial, going back and forth, studying day and night to reach this goal, ended up maybe I think it was the sixth attempt that she got the result that she wanted. And it's not because this time she studied a bit harder, or this time this happened. It's no, because this time God saw where your faith was, and this time he decided to move for you so you can know that this time he did it and his hand was on it. It's not that his hand isn't always over us. Are we acknowledging that his hand is upon us? Like, are we acknowledging that he's in the room right now, that he's in the empty seat, that he's the one that orchestrates everything in our lives? And I think once we take our gaze off of what can people do for me? It's like, what has God done for me that people respect and know about me that will make room for me? I think that's the big thing. And with that story, delay over and over, months and months. But God didn't deny what he wanted for her and showed and proved to her. And for that, the reward is so much greater. You move differently, knowing that what you do is now a way that you worship. Like, it wasn't, I think for me personally, writing something, a poem, and I love poetry, I love spoken word. I will sit and watch spoken words about anything, everything. Black Button Poetry is my favorite page on Instagram. Shout out Jackie Hill Perry. Even the Bible app has spoken words sometimes on their daily verse of the day little slides that they post. And it's like, wow, how do you turn something around and glorify God with it. When in your mind it feels like it's been a delay to figure out what it is that you use to worship Him. And I know you're probably thinking, Evie, how did you go from delay to denial and then now you're talking about giftings and worship? Well, how about if you've been delayed in your worship? How about if you haven't been able to worship Him like you want to? And I'm speaking from personal experience. Sometimes we get so accustomed to an altar, we get so accustomed to a place, to a building, when it was never supposed to be like that. That we look at a place and think, what can I benefit? Or I am supposed to be up there. Even if God calls you out and confirms to you again and again what your calling is, how are you acting outside of that when He's delaying the process that He has for you? You know the process that He has for you. You know the gifting and calling He has over you. How are you acting when He has you in a season of waiting? And I'm speaking to myself, the biggest in the crowd, the one in the crowd that is taking notes is myself right now. Because there's so many times where I'm like, oh, that should be me. Or, why isn't that me? And God doesn't want that mentality. Yes, He knows it's you. You know it's you. Everyone in the room knows it's you. But God has you in a season of waiting. Why? How are you worshiping in your waiting season? I had to take a trip. And I didn't speak too much about my Chicago trip. God made a way. And I'm going to give a quick testimony because, again, delay is not denial. And this is one of the biggest things in a while that has happened to me. Not that big things won't happen all the time. God is constantly confirming, giving dreams, giving words. But this is one of the things that I feel comfortable to share. And a few months ago, I remember sitting in a meeting with my parents. First of all, that's the first testimony. Sitting in a meeting with my parents, with my church, talking about, okay, these are the things that we're going to do this year. This conference is one of them. It's the last conference. It's going to be amazing if you've ever gone. It's the most amazing conference. Like, God is moving. God is, and sometimes as Christians, we look at events and we're like, I need to be in the room. I need to be in the room. And I didn't feel that, but I wanted it. I didn't feel like I needed it, but I wanted it. And I was like, God, I want this. Like, I want to go, but there's no way it's going to pan out. Like, I don't have the funds to do this, first of all. I don't have the time off to do this. And, yeah, none of my friends are going, so I'm not going. So I thought. So months pass, and my friend brings it up, and she's like, you have to come. You have to go to the conference. I heard this. I heard that. This person had this experience. And last year, we tried to go to this conference, and it was not happening for us. Like, it was not in our favor. Tickets were over $400, barely any space left. Like, it was not happening for us. It was not working out. So this year comes, the opportunity comes again. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I can go, friend. There's no way I can go. First of all, I don't have the time off. Second of all, who got the money right now? Because it's literally 2 months away. And are we going to go do that? Like, what are you thinking? My friend was like, girl, you don't think that God will do it for you? Like, you don't think? And I was like, yeah, but I don't know. He'll have to give me a whole new job. Y'all. Flash forward 2 months later, I find myself in an interview, which is a whole other testimony, that I was offered the day before, that I applied for months ago, getting the position, having a start date, my start date being delayed a week off the week of the conference. I said, friend, we're going to conference. Shout out to Frances, she's a friend. But the way that God moved, so much delay. I was like, I'm not going. I don't think this is happening. God, are you going to work this out for me? And He did. He did. And it was such a beautiful experience. He had to drag me by the hair 1,000 miles away to tell me something that He's already been telling me for, it feels like years, for 3 years now. And it was to do an action that I know, and to I can't say, I don't want to say what it is, but it was to really just do the thing that I already know that He told me to do, and to start, because there are things that people need to know. That's all I'm going to say. And I don't know if I would have received that in a different way than the way that God dramatically pulled me and made it possible. Like, He really made it possible. And I don't know if that makes sense to you, where you ever had an experience where God will literally make room for you. When I'm telling you, He moves everything aside For me to have the ability, for my friend to have the ability, for us to have the ability to go, to receive, and to come back and to pour out has been one of the greatest things this year so far that I've been able to experience. Because when God makes it known that He wants you in the room, that this is something that you need to listen to because we're not crazy. I think a lot of the times we get comfortable in our calling and we forget that God has placed things over us, giving us words, giving us experiences, not to give us the experience to keep on and just keep it, but to have them again and to remember. And the theme was to remember. And so I want to encourage you guys today, remember that delay, whether it's delay of a date, delay of an experience, delay of hearing something out, or a meeting with someone. I think a lot of times too, sometimes we have delays in our processes, delays in where we want to see ourselves. And to end that story now again, I didn't think that God was going to do that. Guys, few days before this trip, I'm getting the news that I will be attending. Because I decided, I was like, I'm going. There's nothing else. God gave me the news. God was like, yeah, girl, and you're going to get paid. Like, that was, I can't explain the craziness. When God wants something for you, He will move and shift things around in your favor. And just because last year we thought, this is it. This is for us. We're going to do this way. But we had to be delayed. Why? There was people that needed to be with us. There were words that we needed to hear this year that are fueling us to finish off this season, that are confirming things that we've prayed about since beginning of the year. And His delay is not denial. His delay doesn't mean you weren't supposed to go or you aren't supposed to go. It's maybe not yet. Maybe you're not ready yet. Maybe there's something that you have yet to understand, and I'm going to make it so that you do understand. And I'm going to put you at the right place and the right time, position you so that you are ready to receive in that moment. And to be quite honest, do I feel the most qualified to hold this microphone and to tell you that when my life doesn't reflect the everyday things that God does? No. And I'm shifting again. This is a conversation that I had with Emily, because we're not perfect. And so I want to say that the reason that I'm saying this right now to you is not so you can feel bad for me. It's not so you can feel pity and be like, what is she talking about? No. Because sometimes we delay. We feel like God is placing us in different rooms, in different positions, and we feel the effects of it. God, am I not good enough? God, am I not supposed to be there right now? Why am I not there? Why am I not healed? Why am I not with the job? Why don't I have the mentality that others have? Again, delay is not denial. Delay is not denial. God is constantly molding us, constantly shaping us into the proper believer, into the proper person. Just because you're a believer doesn't mean you're a perfect person. And just because you're a daughter doesn't mean you're the greatest daughter. And there are things that we need to work on as people. I need to work on impulse. I need to work on self-control. I need to work on just being vulnerable, comparison. And those are all things that we feel like delayed in. I feel delayed. I'm like, God, how can I can't get over this. I can't get over this situation. I can't get over this person. I can't get over this trauma. Why? Why not? But again, just because you're delayed in your process doesn't mean God doesn't want you. It doesn't mean that God is not working in you. And it doesn't mean that God doesn't have people for you to help you. And that's something that I've had to learn. It's really that. Why is the timing different for them than for me? Why do people why are people booed up and not me? Why do people have the degrees and I don't? My story doesn't look like everybody else's. And the sooner we get into our minds that our calling is so much different, and our delay doesn't mean that God doesn't want us or He doesn't have big plans. There's a song, and it's like, I don't remember how it goes, to be honest, but it's like, I know He has good plans. And I love that. I love that verse because despite everything, despite the delay, despite the timing, despite the vision board that you created this year, His plans are greater, and He has greater plans for you that you have yet to understand. And I think that's the greatest part of all of it. It's witnessing and knowing where you started, the journey that God is taking you, and being in such a waiting season. It isn't compare. It doesn't compare. Other people can say, oh, I understand, but things move like this for them. And you might be thinking, God, but I'm serving you. But God, but I moved for them. But I helped my family. And God, I'm the one that was praying. Why are they the ones being promoted? You don't know the house that you have in heaven. And I love telling my friend told me this story. And I told it back to her and used it for a similar situation, because it seems as though sometimes the people that you help are the ones that are getting the biggest blessing, but you don't know the prayer that's behind it. God moving because of your faith, which is so biblical. Like, God moved on behalf of someone else's faith for another person. And you don't know if it's because the faith, the fasting that you are putting in, that the person that you're praying for is being promoted, being pushed forward, being launched. What bigger blessing it is to witness. But sometimes we get into our minds of, God, what about me though? Like, I was the one that put in how much pride. I am tired of being that prideful person, because I'm being honest right now, we all have those mentalities of, God, but I'm the one that's serving you. I'm the one that's in the local church. I'm the one that's fasting. I'm the one evangelizing for your people. So why are the people that are not in your will moving forward, moving faster, and being loved or being promoted? Whatever it may be, fill in the gap for you. But it's not our responsibility to understand and to really question God, because you never know. Yes, those people can be being promoted and they're being prospered and they're being set apart, but it's because of your faith. It's because of the nights that you spent praying. And the more that we look at it without a heart of deceit and without a heart of pride, and we make room and we recognize our waiting time, our waiting area, there's nothing more anxious. There's nothing more anxiety filled, I would say, than being in the waiting room of a hospital while someone's having surgery, while you're waiting for someone that you love to know that they're okay. There's nothing scarier than that. And the intensity, the sorrow, the pacing of the mind, you're wondering, is everything going to be okay? Thousands of thoughts are running in your mind. Thousands of thoughts are coming back and forth. There's nothing more scary than being in the waiting room. And that is sometimes what our seasons are like. We are in a waiting room, waiting for God to move, waiting for something to give, waiting for something to break. And in the midst of the waiting room, it's scary. People are getting called back to rooms that you want to be in, to get results, to learn more, to get good news, sometimes to get bad news. And those people are coming in and out. And it seems like one after the other, but your name hasn't been called yet. And you're waiting, and your name hasn't been called yet. And the people that got there after you, their name is being called, but your name hasn't been called yet. What are you doing in the waiting room? How are you waiting for God to call you? What before he calls you, how are you waiting? Are you waiting for people to call you or waiting for God to call you? On that trip, I learned that. I learned that I am very, what's the word? Dependent on the call of another person without recognizing that God already called me. Like, why do we wait as Christians for people to recognize the God in us, to recognize how good of a person we are? Why do we feel the need to prove it every 5 seconds? I don't know. I can say that it really is just because we know that we are set apart, but people who truly understand and know will know that Jesus is in you, that you live a life of faith, even though you're not perfect. And I think that example with the waiting room which is not something that I plan on discussing, um, is really just that it's being in that moment despite the anxiety, despite the fear, despite everything, while others are being called, walking past you. How are you reacting? Are you even more anxious? Are you doubting God even more? God, am I even supposed to be here? Is this where my visit is? Is this where my appointment is? Are you really calling? Is there bad news for me? Are they waiting to tell me the bad news? When in reality, God just wants to see, how long are you willing to wait for me to call you out? And are you at the right place for me to call you? That's what it is. That's waiting room mentality, is knowing that there's going to be people after you that are called before you, and you have to deal with it. And you have to be happy and process, and don't look at it with pride and or shame. And remember that just because God hasn't called you out yet, or because people haven't called your name, doesn't mean that you're not called. God confirms to you before people confirm to you. Sometimes we feel crazy because God confirms to us, and then we're waiting for people to call on us. But you're not crazy. And I think a lot of the times when I have situations like this with my friends, a lot of the times I'm like, oh my God, we're not crazy. God has been confirming we're good. Like, I read this and God confirmed it to me. He confirmed it to you. He confirmed it in my dream. Um, and are you ready to be in a season of waiting? Are you ready to be, passed by, and then for God to call you out? I think that's it. Are you ready? Are you ready to wait? How are you waiting? And how are you recognizing your season of waiting, or your season of delay? Remember that delay doesn't mean that God doesn't want to move, or that he won't move, or that things won't be moved around for you. Again, it could be preparation. It could be that maybe you need to cling closer to him in a season of delay. That's really it. So I hope that this episode resonated with you, and maybe there are seasons in your life that you've had to wait and God has moved mountains for you in. And once you put your eyes on him, turn your gaze towards him, you recognize that he's been moving things around you to make room for you. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Honestly, I feel like I needed that. I hope that you resonated with it. And maybe you're in this season of waiting right now. I just want to encourage you to cling closer to God more than ever, to write things down, write down what he's revealing to you, share it with someone that you trust, confess to someone, hey, I'm in a season of waiting and I'm struggling a lot with self-control, or I'm in a season of waiting and I'm struggling a lot with my joy, or my emotions, or how I treat other people. Whatever it is for you. But I'm so happy that I got the opportunity this week to share that message with you guys. Please, please, please make sure to share this with a friend if this resonated with you, or if you are just in a waiting and want to reflect, watch this video, share it on social media. Please plug in our socials right now at YesUPod on Instagram, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts. And TikTok is being worked on, currently in progress. It is under construction as we post more videos for you guys. But I really hope you enjoyed this video. And we are super excited. We're super excited, super blessed, and honored to be in this season with you. And we're just super excited to see what God will do next. So stay tuned for the next week's episode. I love y'all. Bye.